despise incompetence way more than I despise evil, for the simple fact that it's far more difficult to find true evil in the world. It's not everywhere, even though the religious types will tell you that anyone who isn't like them is quote unquote evil. Evil isn't something you see every single day. True evil, I mean the essence of brutality and cruelty and disrespect and this ability to completely dehumanize people. You don't see it every single day. Now, of course, in some places on planet Earth, you do see it every single day. But if you're in America, if you're in a first world country, quote unquote, whatever that means, because the metrics are always changing, right? If you're in a great place, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the world, you don't see true evil on a day-to-day basis, because the qualification for true evil, in my eyes at least, is very, very high. I think the bar should be exceptionally high. Everything else can be a gradation of bad, can be a gradation of terrible acts, but to call it truly evil, I think that requires a certain level of action that 99.9% of people just aren't hitting, especially not consistently. But you know what you see all the time? You see incompetence everywhere. There are far more incompetent people than there are evil people. Incompetent people are all around you. People that can't drive, people who can't find their Ubers whenever they pull up right next to them with the license plate in their face and the car being shining bright in the sunlight. They can't find their Ubers. People who can't order meals, and so they take 5, 10, 15 minutes in line while other people are waiting. Incompetent. People who can't fix very simple problems in an apartment building. People who don't have the answers to questions that are right in front of them. There are incompetent people all over the place. People that, quite frankly, don't have anything going on in their brains. And this is why I understand the NPC argument, because when you look at certain people and you study how they move, you watch them move through the world, it's only reasonable to come to the conclusion that these people are not playable characters, that there is nothing going on in there, that there isn't a soul, that there isn't a heart, except for the physical heart that must beat in order for them to stay alive. There isn't a heart in the metaphorical sense, in the poetic sense, in the romantic sense. There's nothing in there. There's no thoughts in the brain. It's just a program. It's just a line of code that is embodied in flesh, right? There's a reason why people believe that, because incompetence is all around you. It's very difficult to find people who know what they're doing, who are serious about life, who are driven, who are on the ball, who are dotting their I's and crossing their T's and doing it regularly. Not just every once in a while, not just for a week or for a couple weeks or for a couple months. No, people that do it all the time, people that are disciplined, people who don't need external motivation, people who don't need external drivers to get them out of bed, to get them moving, to get them working and hustling and providing and learning and creating and studying and exploring and adventuring. These people are very, very rare. And so, first and foremost, if you want to stand out from the crowd, if you want to stand out from the masses, you must become one of these people, one of these competent folks that does not need external validation to go out and perform, who does not need to be driven by anything but an internal will, this will that Schopenhauer talks about, that's so powerful. I've talked about it before in my videos. This will that you cannot get a grasp on, but is simply coursing through your blood. You need to be one of these people that gets up and gets after it, that does not need people to tell them, oh, great job, that does not need claps or applauses, that does not need to look at the past and say, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong, that doesn't need to look at the future and say, I'm going to go get it for that. No, somebody who just goes and does it because they have to. If you want to separate yourself from the masses, you need to be somebody who's intelligent, somebody who can think through problems, somebody who isn't overly emotional, someone who is able to detach, to step back, to look at a situation and say, how do I handle this in a way that's going to be beneficial, first and foremost, for me, but moreover, and also very importantly, for everyone around me? How do I handle this in a way that's going to make everybody better, that's going to leave everybody in a better position? Very few people can do that. 1 out of every 10 at the most. I'd say 1 out of every 100,000, 200,000, maybe a million can actually do that. I'm in the city of Chicago. There's 3 million people here. How many people in Chicago are truly competent? I mean, brutally competent. People that can think through problems, that can think from first principles, that have multiple skills, that can learn quickly, that can read a room, that can play the game of life, that are actually immersed in the world around them, in the environment in which they are walking through, the environment in which they have to navigate. How many people in this city are really like that? I don't know. I've only been here a couple weeks. But what I can tell you, having lived in Pittsburgh my entire life and having taken over 16,000 rides in that city as an Uber and Lyft driver, there's very few. There's very few. Yes, that city is 10 times less big in terms of population and also in size, but population particularly. But the numbers are going to stay the same. The ratios are going to stay the same. Perhaps here there are more overall people in total, because people will move to Chicago for high-profile positions. It's a bigger city, aka bigger opportunities, quote unquote. Perhaps there's more competent people. But by and large, in your area, there are very few people who you can look at and ask them a question and they will give you an answer. And if they give you an answer, it's probably going to be a scripted answer. And that scripted answer probably is not going to get you anywhere important, right? They're customer service reps on the phone that only know how to say the thing they've been trained to say, right? It's that sales call representative from all the way out somewhere across the ocean blue that only knows how to read off the script. That does not get you anywhere valuable. The AI that you call, the AI responder that says, click this for this, or click this for that, or press this number for that person. And then you can never get where you need to go because it's this scripted line of thought. It's this logic that breaks down the second you have a real world concern, right? That's what I'm getting at. Brutal competence is the ability to think in human terms. And very few people can do this because even though there are humans everywhere, very few of them actually think in human terms. They actually think creatively. Very few of them do. There are very few artists. There are very few poets. There are very few people that can actually get to the depths of human conditions, that can actually get to the essence of anything. And if you want to separate yourself from the masses, you're going to have to become that type of person. You're going to have to become the person that understands the human condition, every single last aspect of it at its core, at its absolute deepest essence. Then and only then will you separate yourself from the masses, because then you will be able to program yourself. You will be able to flip on and off switches. You will be able to turn knobs and move dials in order to put yourself in a state where you can get anything you want done, where you can become anyone you want to become. That is mastery. That is power. That is how you rule the world. You take over the world. Not in the sense that you're becoming a Napoleon, not in the sense that you're becoming an Alexander the Great or a Julius Caesar or a Genghis Khan. You're not becoming one of those military conquerors. No, you're becoming a conqueror of the environment. You're becoming a conqueror of the human condition. And that is far more important. Now, granted, those conquerors did it as well, but they were more focused on the external. I'm referring to the internal. And if you can conquer the internal by understanding the human condition at its core, at its essence, you will be able to transform yourself at the flick of a switch, at a moment's notice. And you will rule the world. This is why it's so frustrating to me whenever I move through the world and I have to deal with incompetence all the time. My level of patience for incompetence is getting very, very thin. And at this point, I don't even know if it exists. Now, perhaps this is a flaw on my end. Perhaps I need to be more gracious. I need to be more patient. I need to understand that people are coming from different places. But when I look at how much incompetence there is in the world, I think to myself, wow, if only that got turned up a little bit more. If only there was a little bit more competence there. Not a lot, just a tiny, tiny bit. How many problems would be solved? How many problems would never occur? How many situations would people never be placed in? Negative ones. Situations where people die, where people are mangled, maimed, where families are broken apart, where situations are irrevocably destroyed. Circumstances irrevocably destroying people's lives. How many situations would be prevented if only competence was turned up a little tiny bit? I think about this all the time. And moreover, if you want to separate yourself from the masses, you're going to have to do one of two things. If you are a competent person, or if you're an incompetent person, you look yourself in the mirror and you realize, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the world. Maybe I'm not the brightest bulb in the chandelier. Fair enough. It's not like I always was. Now, I think I'm the smartest person on planet Earth. I do. Granted, there's also a part of me, a compartment inside of my brain that realizes there's a lot for me to learn. There's a lot for me to understand still. I have not mastered the game yet. There are those two compartments in my brain. But if you look yourself in the mirror and realize you're not the most competent person in the world and you want to become that person, you're going to have to do one of two things. First and foremost, you can decide to isolate yourself. You can become a hermit. I've done this before. Whenever I was in Pittsburgh for 2.5 years, I drove Uber and Lyft. I did the night shift. I did it ruthlessly. I did it with a military-like discipline because I never wanted to be poor again. I had some money, then I went broke, and then I never wanted to be poor again. So I ran my life like a military operation. I was isolated. I was by myself, at least for most of my waking hours. I would start at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, sometimes as early as 3 or even 2:30, and I would go till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or rather 3 o'clock in the morning. I would go. And so I was isolated from the world because during the day I was doing my own thing. I was training. I was writing music. I was doing whatever I had to do in order to move content forward, in order to move my mind forward, all the things that I wanted to accomplish that weren't making money. But then at night I was making money, so I wasn't socializing. You can become a hermit. And if you choose to become a hermit, you can maintain your competence, improve your competence, and most importantly, you will avoid the incompetence. Because the best part about being a hermit is that you avoid the incompetence. You isolate yourself from the idiocy. You quarantine yourself from the stupidity, from the ridiculousness of people. It's a really powerful strategy. However, it has drawbacks because you can only isolate yourself for so long. You could only be alone for so long. Whenever you're alone too long, you stop remembering who you are. Or rather, you detach too much from your purpose. You detach too much from the reason why you began to isolate in the first place, right? You had a reason for going into isolation. You had a reason for separating yourself from the world. You're going to lose that reason if you're away from the world too long because you do need some feedback eventually, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, year and a half down the line, eventually you're going to need feedback from the world. And once you have that feedback, you'll realize that you want to isolate yourself again, right? It's this circle. It's this pendulum. Bing, 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 bing. Back and forth, back and forth. It's with everything in life. It's with romance. Whenever you're dating somebody or whenever you have strong feelings for somebody, there's a tendency to want this hot and cold, this iciness, and then this inflamed feeling where you just can't get enough of them. Oh my God, the passion's so great. You want both. You want both sides of that coin. It's the same thing with isolation. But if you don't choose to isolate yourself because you don't want to go into that dark cave and you don't want to separate yourself from the world for whatever reason, which is perfectly fine because it's not advisable by any means, you have to learn how to detach from the idiocy around you. You have to learn how to put up this shield. It's semi-permeable, but it is a shield nonetheless. This is what I'm doing now. I'm in the world all the time now. And when I'm in the world, I have to have this semi-permeable shield up so that the idiocy does not infect me, so that the ridiculousness does not infect me, so that I am not overcome by the plague of incompetence that is festering in every street in America, in every street on planet Earth. I have to avoid that at all costs. And since I want to be in the world, like you may want to be in the world, you may want to go to the bars and to the clubs every once in a while, you may want to hang out with friends, you may want to be a socialite, go to events, network, make connections, etc. If you're going to do that, you're going to need to put up this semi-permeable shield where you let some come in, but only enough to the point where you're able to remove it if it is truly toxic to the degree where it could destroy you, or it could start to really impact you. You have to have this semi-permeable shield where you run essentially border security against the idiocy of the world. And I know that's probably a hot button topic. Oh, border security, blah, blah, blah. It's a good analogy. So that being said, let me know what you think about this. Do you see incompetence everywhere? Because I certainly do. And I despise it more than evil because true evil is really rare. True evil is really, really hard to find. When you see it, you know it, you feel it. It courses through your body much like the will that I described previously. It boils your blood. It stirs you in a sense that there's a part of your human being that wants to destroy it, that wants to annihilate it, that wants to eliminate it. And of course, that's shaped by the books you read, by the mosque or the temple that you attend, by the upbringing that you have, by the principles that you have adopted. That's all shaped by it. But objectively, regardless of what you've been taught, there is this sense of evil in my eyes that you feel it, you know it when you see it, when you hear the screams and the shrieks, or when you just look into somebody's eyes as they're doing something, you can just sense the evil in that person. You can sense it. When you see it and you know it. But by and large, the biggest problem you're going to face on a day-to-day basis is dealing with incompetence. You're going to have to learn how to deal with people who don't know how to do anything of use, who are of no value on a practical level. Now, of course, they may have souls. They may be perfectly kind, perfectly polite, perfectly nice. They have family, they have friends. I'm not discussing them in the sense that I don't feel for that, right? Have your life. I hope your family situation's great. I hope your friendships only blossom. I hope everything is great for you, but you are incompetent nonetheless. And on a day-to-day basis, that's going to be the biggest thing you deal with. I gave you 2 strategies to deal with it. You can intertwine them. You can see them through as you see fit, and you could also discard them, and you could find your own strategy. Perhaps you want to dive all the way into the incompetence. That's a third strategy. In fact, I've done that before. I've gone all the way into the incompetence and said, you know what? I'm going to put myself in positions where I am surrounded by idiocy and ridiculousness so that I can be inspired to create art that encapsulates this feeling I have when I'm around it. This feeling of knowing I could do more, knowing that there's more inside of me, but that the world I'm in does not provide a breeding ground for the ideas in my brain and the ambition that courses through my blood. There is a strategy you can use in that sense where you put yourself in positions where you really are in the underbelly, right? Bruce Wayne did it as Batman. He became a thief. He learned what it was like to steal. He learned what it was like to rob, to live on very little, to really struggle to survive so that he could understand the criminal, so that whenever he came back to Gotham, he understood them to the degree where he would know how they would act. He would know how they were feeling. He would know who they were so that it wasn't this impersonal relationship. It was a very personal relationship. It was a relationship he knew all too well, yet he still had to snuff them out, but it wasn't out of vengeance or spite, at least not in the Christopher Nolan renditions. It wasn't out of vengeance or spite. It was because he knew, as someone who did it, that it was still wrong. At least that's my interpretation. But perhaps I'm rambling. In any case, let me know what you think about this. And if you have any particularly interesting comments, drop them down below. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Much love, peace. This is New Da Vinci. Have a blessed day or evening, depending on what time it is for you.